Hello, I'm Mary Giuliano, and my guest today is Alex Gredzuk, who is a longtime Fernie resident, I think born and raised here. Right, Alex? And so we are here to talk about the life and times of residents in Fernie. And I'm starting with Alex. Thanks for agreeing to come on, Alex, and talking about your life with me. So tell me where you were born here in Fernie. Were you born in the hospital?
I was born in West Fernie in our own
West
house.
Fernie.
Yeah, the midwife, I guess, at that time, I think was Mrs. Sangella.
Wow, you remember the name?
Oh, yes. Yeah, yeah. 1932, March 18th, 1932.
1932.
Yeah.
What was Fernie like when you were growing up, when you were a kid? West Fernie then.
From what I know of it now, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. Everybody knew everybody. While being in West Fernie, we were kind of segregated from uptown, but we went to school down the north to the high school, or the Fernie School, and after school we come right back to West Fernie. Eh? We more or less stayed with ourselves down there. It was like one big family in West Fernie, one big family.
When you were a child, was there still a sawmill there?
No,
it was
just the
already gone?
remains. We played where the sawmill was. All the brick structures, the foundations were all there. The big burner was there. I guess you call it a Shea engine or whatever, steam engine that hauled the logs out of Cedar Valley and that. It was over the bank into part of the river, and it was removed when they were shipping all the steel to Japan. And I remember the burner. I was standing right on the corner watching the burner blow over. They blew it over to cut it up, but I guess something happened. I guess when Japan went against us, they quit sending it, so they only cut half when we used to play in the burner. It was a big burner, like, eh? We used to run up and down each side, inside, and, yeah. No, but we played around the old sawmill, you know. And West Fernie, them days, just about every second house had cows. Everybody had chickens or pigs. Horses run loose. There was 20, 30 horses running loose. You had to make sure you closed your gate or they were in the gardens. And because everybody had a big garden, We had like a big L-shaped garden, and my dad dug it all by hand, eh? Everything, potatoes, whatever, vegetables was grown. Garlic, he grew a lot of garlic. I think he sold garlic to Trice Woods, eh? Because he used to braid it in long braids and hang it to dry. And West Fernie was a great place. And I think there was one telephone then, and that was down in Gillette's garage, where after a while it ended up with Johnny Harold's place at it. And there was, in our backyard, there was a store there at one time before we had the property, Pearson's store. You know, I don't remember the store, but I remember them talking about it. And there was like Gillette's store, gas station, and Lias's store, and Kennedy's store.
There was quite a few shops.
Three little stores, eh?
Three.
Because you could go there and look through the window at all the chocolate bars and that, but you never had money to buy them, eh? We could go in the slough and get a beer bottle and wash it good and go get 3 black marbles for it. You know, at the store they traded in. We did lots of fishing, lots of gophers, hunting gophers and that.
Gophers?
Gophers, like you snaring gophers, eh? Because it's overrun with gophers them days.
Oh, okay. Did people eat the gophers?
Oh, no.
No, okay.
No.
Just wondering.
There was some people after, when I worked in Sawmill in Cedar Valley, there was people that owned the old show in town. They were up there shooting, and they said they take them. They were eating them, you know.
Well, really, if you think about it,
we kind of frowned on it, but I mean, that was their custom, so, yeah. But no, West Fernie, we had lots. We had the old school down there, West Fernie School, and we used to go in there and play. Mr. Clark, that's Mr. Clark, his name Jim Clark. He was a foreman with the Department of Highways that days, and he kind of run it. We'd go over there and get the key off and to go in it. And then that same school, after the war ended, a bunch of the boys that come back, Kenny Bird, some of the bakers and all them, they remodeled it in there and made like a tennis court, and we had a a community center like for West Fernie, out of that, out of the old school.
So did you go to school like with kindergarten and the lower grades in the school in West Fernie?
Well, I guess they did. I never did go to
Oh,
that
you
school.
didn't go.
No,
Mhm.
no, my brothers did, and sister went to it, but I went to down North End, like, 901 or whatever they call it now.
Yeah.
But no,
Well,
we,
back then it was
and
Fernie
even them
Central
days,
School.
in a winter day, it's cold and there's, nobody plowed the roads much them days and that, eh? You were waiting for somebody to break the trail up, and it's cold. So we'd go up across the old bridges, eh? West Fernie, there was the Slough Bridge and the River Bridge up 4th Street Hill. We
So
called it
that's-
the Town Hill, eh?
So that was called the Slough Bridge, the one that went?
Well, that was a slough that they used to bring the logs down to the sawmill, eh? And in that slough, up above, there was the where they had the boom. We used to call it, we're going fishing to the boom. That's where they had a boom across the river to bring the logs down from east of Fernie, like, you know, past around Hosmer up in the side hills all up there. And they come down to the Slough Bridge, under the Slough Bridge to the sawmill. And then we had the highway bridge and up the town hill. We used to go through the alley by Brown's house there to the post office and get in the post office in the winter to get warm. And we had old Charlie Heskett was the caretaker, and he knew we were from, he was from West Fernie, so he didn't mind us coming in there to get warm. Because later on they changed it, that guy that looked after it, and he didn't like us. He was kind of miserable, and he didn't like us because he said, "You're bringing snow in this," you know, it was all those little tiles on the floor. And so from there we'd go down to going to school, and Mickey Berrigan, the blacksmith, we'd get in there, and he knew us kids from West Fernie. Come on in, he'd be shoeing horses or whatever. And we'd go in there and get warm and then off to school. He just another.
So you would come on off that bridge up to 4th to go to
Well,
the high school,
we come
to
up
the
the,
school.
the 4th Street Hill,
Mhm.
in through the alley by Brown's, over to the post office. The post office where the library was then, eh? And then down Main Street, 2nd Avenue then, well, it was, you know,
I've seen photos of it.
oh yeah.
But you said there was another bridge besides that one?
No, the Slough Bridge,
That was the only bridge? Was
and
there
then the
another?
River Bridge.
So is that the river bridge, the one that's in the same place that's
No,
waiting?
no, it was down below the hill where they dumped the snow now. There was a bridge there, eh, by the old, and across the bridge was the curling rink and the skating rink. The 10 buildings. That land all got taken out in, mostly in 48 and 50, where them buildings were.
Mhm.
You know, with the old skating rink and that was. But, and so, you know, there's lots of stories on that arena too, because, you know,
So let's take a teeny break and we'll
Yeah.
keep going. That 15 minutes sure went.
Cool.
So let's
Yeah.
continue with your memories.
well, like when we went to school them days, everybody, you kind of pushed each other because you wanted to open the door for the teacher, you know. And we played ball on all the school grounds there out. They had the you know, the things swinging around on and that on the school grounds there. But winter times were tough going up to school.
I bet
yeah,
they were.
Yeah.
I
And,
like that you mentioned that streets weren't plowed.
well, they weren't, and I can remember the city when they used to plow some of the city streets. I think that guy's name was George Riggins or something. They had a plow, like a angled plow, wooden one, pulled by a horse, and he stood on that plow to cut it down. I can remember him going up from what is now 4th Street towards the post office. The post office now, like, you know, along them sidewalks, doing a little bit of plowing. But as far as the highways plowing, they had a 30 cat or a 60 cat, and I can remember it coming by our house. It had a V-nose and a wing on each side. And them same guys, like I worked with some of them after years later, when I started with the highways in 53, still some of them around. They used to go to Newgate and them places 2 weeks at a time and stay at different farms and houses on the way to Grassmere, Newgate, and that to plow the roads once every 3 weeks. You can imagine what the roads were like, you know.
I would like to see that happening now in Fernie, seeing as
pardon
how
But,
people want the roads plowed as soon as the snow falls.
But no, it was different then. It was us kids when in this, we'd catch rides up the hills and up towards school because all the deliveries were horse drawn. Eh? There was Mitries and Trites Woods and Bill. I remember, I tried to, and I do remember his name sometime, used to drive for Trites Woods, eh? And Bruno Magali, I remember him driving for Mitri and different ones. The 41 Meat Market had like a chariot buggy with a single horse, you know, delivering the meat around. So most of the guys, they give you a ride on the back. Then as the trucks come in, Freddie Sochuk's dad, Mike Sochuk, he'd be hauling logs or wood with his truck, and we could jump on the back to go up the hill because they're going slow, and then you could jump on, jump off. And Andy Lee's truck, he was the general merchant from West Fernie, and the tailgate was usually down, so we'd get on the back of that, ride up the hills. You know, it was, you know, they were good days, I guess.
They were hard, though.
Hard days. Well,
Yeah.
they never had nothing. You know, never had nothing. Like I've talked before, and I says about my dad buying me a pair of shoes. I can still see them. They had nice green laces across the front, but we had to hide them in the potato patch because the relief inspectors or something were coming around to see what you had, eh? And
Really?
you couldn't have new shoes, you know, because where did you get the money, eh? You know, he worked lots in the bush mostly, and then he ended up like working with Department of Highways Bridge.
So was that in the 30s or 40s?
That'd be in the 30s, early, mostly 30s of them days, eh? That we're talking that.
What's the name of your parents?
My
Your mom and
dad
dad,
was
yeah.
Nicholas Gredzuk.
Uh-huh.
My mother was Mary. Well, my mother's first husband was killed in Coal Creek, and she remarried. She was Iwanik.
Oh,
Mary
okay.
Iwanik, and her husband got killed in Coal Creek, and then she married my dad. My dad had come over to Fernie in 1913 from the Ukraine. My mother was born in Lethbridge, and at a year and a half old, she moved to Coal Creek with her parents and that. And her mother run a boarding house in Coal Creek. There were the days when there was lots of people up there.
Right.
And then they moved down into Fernie, my mother, when she got married and that, and her parents moved to different places in Alberta, different mines and that, and they're buried in Nordic, Alberta, you know, and
Is there anybody buried in the old cemetery here in Fernie?
no,
your
St.
family?
Margaret's, yes, but
Oh,
not in the bottom, but
Okay.
we used to walk through that where they said there was no cemeteries, because my mother knew a lot of, my dad died, yeah, I was only 15 when my dad died, and I had a sister, Isabel. She died at 2 years of age or so, and we
How many children did your mother have with her first husband? Because I remember Iwanik's here
Yeah.
in Fernie.
3, eh?
3.
Yeah, four.
So is there anybody left in Fernie?
No.
So
There-
Janet was the last one?
Jeanette was married to Johnny Iwanik. Yeah, see, my brother Bill and my sister Margaret was married to Stan Smith. He
Oh,
was from
right.
Coal Creek.
Margaret was your sister, that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. But we used to walk through that old cemetery, and Mum would point out, like there was fences around them, iron fences or wooden picket fences, and she'd remember these ones and them ones, you know. But then when they try to say there's no cemetery, it kind of makes you wonder what's happening in this world. So I relate that building over the cemetery to same as them houses I won't say it, them houses they built in West Fernie over on the west, I guess it's the south side along the river where the sawmill was, because I remember as a kid when we were young and we played the land right from where the bridge is now, the highway bridge now, from there down through Thompson's Park, all the way around to where the sawmill was. I'm sure we heard that was dedicated for perpetuity to the citizens of West Fernie for recreation purposes. And I often wondered, I mean, this is my think, and I think in this way that that land was supposed, how did it get out into the building?
Well, as far as I know, from being involved with regional district, the park only went to a certain area. And so I don't think where the houses are being built,
Where their
that they
houses
were
are
part of
built.
the park.
There was all, that's where they used to pile all the lumber. There was always the posts.
Mhm.
They put posts in the ground to build the lumber, pile the lumbers on. And at the start of what they call Eckersley Street, I think, we never knew it was Eckersley Street. There was the big cement building that was the dry kiln for the lumber.
Oh.
We played in that building when it was collapsed. It was big, but we played around in them cement things. And that was right up on the top where the houses started, like, all down. But I guess the land just goes in time and goes back to different things,
Well, certainly the park is still dedicated.
Yeah.
They
But
cannot build on the park.
I was glad when I just on the Facebook the other day, and it's something about Thompson Park. And I said, oh, they are calling it. It was always known to us as Thompson's Park.
Yeah, it still is.
Old Bill
Yeah.
Thompson, we called him Kilty Bill, eh?
Oh, yeah.
You know, and he looked at, you couldn't touch a leaf on a tree. Like he looked after it. There was teeter-totters and swings. There was a bandstand and a racetrack, because they were into like running and all that, eh? And he looked after it good. A little footbridge across, that was on, like from Crompton's house on the corner, across the slough into that park, eh? And there was good times in there, you know, and they had the boys' bond. They all got together and dammed a little bit of the river and made a boys' pond, eh? The diving board and all that.
It's still used quite a bit, Alex,
Yeah,
because
but it's a disgrace in there. They fell a bunch of trees, they put a power line through it.
well, they had to clean it up a little bit.
Yeah.
And I did ask for benches, and I think they said they were, or they have put in a couple of benches in
And
there.
then somebody started throwing the willow trees in the slough,
Oh.
and now it's overgrown, eh?
Yeah, there's a lot of
Actually, it's
willows.
overgrown the slough.
But it's still pretty nice to,
Oh, it's a
yeah,
nice
the young
place, eh?
kids still
Yeah.
use it, yeah.
But access to it, well, you know, if there was a little footbridge somewhere along the street there, eh?
Well, there is a way that you can get on there.
Yeah, well, they got a bike bridge or something
Yeah.
for biking, yeah, but, I can remember the slough bridge. I can remember one guy, I guess he wasn't feeling good from drinking or something. He put the truck right over the side of the bridge into the slough. I remember all that things, eh?
Wow, you got a good memory, Alex.
I remember a motorcycle, they come up the side street, turned onto the bridge, and two of them, they crashed along the sides, they got their legs pinched against the bridge. Oh, yeah.
What were your teenage years like?
Waiting to get out, waiting to grow old.
Couldn't wait to grow old, yeah.
Waiting to grow old.
Then when
eh?
we're old, we
Get out of
wish
school,
we were still
get
young.
out of school, eh? You know, school, things weren't like, you know, there was no money to be had, there was no
Yeah.
money. So they always, you gotta get out of school, make money, eh? There was lots of jobs, but there was no money in it, eh? I mean, in the summer holidays, we worked for haying and that $1 a day or something, eh? You know?
$1 a day.
$1 a day, yeah. Oh, like I was just telling somebody the other day, I said, if you found a nickel, what you did, you always had a hanky in your pocket. You had to, because the teacher wanted to see your hands in the morning and your hanky. Eh? We'd get that nickel and tie it in the corner and put it in your back pocket. That was your wallet. Oh, yeah. No, there was no money. There was no money to be had, eh? Yeah.
But everybody was in the same level.
Everybody was not trying to beat the Joneses or whatever you call it, eh? You know, no, miners, you know, miners and lumberjacks.
Did you ever work in the mine?
I worked in the mine. I started after school in grade 12 of Cedar Valley with Louis Bax. Jimmy White run the mill. I started on the sawmill. I'd worked on sawmills in the summer holidays for Joe Singala, packing slabs and that. And then when I went up after school, I went up Cedar Valley working on the sawmill. And I started falling in the, like I tell people, you know, I was up there and I was falling trees. You know, they call it fallers, eh? And I says, I had to work with an old guy. I was 19 and he was 27.
An old guy.
Babe Luke from West Fernie, eh? Yeah. And then I started after the falling, then I started running, skidding the cat, they skidding on the bush. And things were slowing down, so I got a job in Michelle. I back and forth with Bud Dickens' bus, trying to get a job. Finally got a job, and I had to work down B South, down the slope. I never forget. It was contract miners. The face was 5 feet high, and going in there, if it was 2 feet high, because the floor, everybody thinks the roof's coming down, but the floor's bumping up. And I went night shift, and my first night shift, I worked with, a couple different people. One was Polish, he could speak a bit of English, and one was Italian and couldn't speak any English. And we're down there, and like I said, 2 feet high. And I stayed there about 7 years in that job down there, and then I quit. I went back in the bush to Cedar Valley. Yeah.
Well, you have strong memories of Cedar Valley, don't you?
I do my playground, eh? And then after I got back to Cedar Valley again, things slowed down. I got a job in Coal Creek. I worked up Coal Creek, up number 3, up 10 incline, 12 incline, yeah. And I had a close call up there. I had a runaway. I was a rope rider. And yeah, a lot of people, rope riders. In fact, my mother's first husband was killed rope riding. And
what is that exactly?
well, you have a hoistman up on the side of the incline, and up at the top of that incline you have a bow wheel, or wheel where the cable went up and come back down the track, but it had to have a rope car attached to it to pull the cable back to the bottom, take up the timbers, because that's all you did is haul timbers up there, pans or something. And I guess this one day, we overloaded the trip coming down because there had been a bad accident.
Oh, go ahead. We got
Bad accident up in the mine, and we had to bring some rock, loads of rock down to the rock cars, and we overdone it. It ran away, it ripped the whole bow wheel out and everything, and my hoistman was Chester Polanka, and I used to tell him, "You're going too fast, eh?"
okay.
And
We're going to stop right now just
yeah.
for
Yeah,
a little break.
could cough a bit. Yeah,
So-
well, the accident I had in Coal Creek is, like I said, the bow wheel, everything pulled out, and I'm going flying down, and we had on that slope that we call the knuckle. It was 44 degrees, the track there, and Bill Verker, he was the fire boss. We brought with the rope car, we brought 3 loads rock car, 3 coal cars with rock to the top of the knuckle. We changed them to the track, and we took the rope car back up and got another 3 loads of rock, brought them down, hooked them all together, and he stepped off, and I go down with the rope car and all these cars of rock, and we started going over that. Not like I said, it was 44 degrees, and we're passing the hoist. The hoistman, he's on the side, Chester Blanca, and I thought, oh, he's giving me another rough ride. He's giving me a fast ride. Well, you tried to bell, you had like a file to touch the 2 wires for 1 signals, eh? And finally I was like, oh, he's going too fast, and I jumped off. And when you jump off something fast, you go with it. And I'm sliding down on my face and my chest on the tracks, and the rope just touched me. And the rope was, I don't know, about inch and a quarter cable, eh? And it just touched me or something, bouncing. And I knew the conveyors right beside me, they didn't run during the day. I got underneath them. All the 6 cars and the rope car, they all piled up about 50 feet farther, smashed all to pieces. Broke everything, just smashed. So right away, well, Gredzuk's dead, he's dead, eh? So the word goes, my friend Leonard Kupchak was working down the slope, and right away goes to the mine. Gredzuk got killed on the incline, eh? You know? So Dr. LaRue come up, he was my doctor, he for the mines, and he come up there, and they had the basket and everything, and Bill Verker, he come down, running down, and he found me there, and we went out a different way, because we couldn't go down the way the track was, because it was jammed up. And I come down to the hospital, Dr. LaRue brought me down to the office. All he did is scrape a bit of coal out of my mouth, my face and chest, and go home, you know.
Well, it's good
2
that you.
weeks later, I went back, and they says, I remember Jimmy Littler, Jazz Anderson, are you going on the rope today? I says, if I don't go today, I won't go ever again. So I stayed there maybe a month or two later, and I said, no, I'm going back to the bush. I'm going back to the bush, yeah. And then from the bush, in 1953, I started with the Department of Highways, November 16th, 1953.
Before you talk about that, you mentioned some names that were pretty well known in Fernie, like Kupchak and Jazz Anderson and.
You know, well, Jan Anderson was he was, I guess, he was, what they call him, like, Bill Verker was a fire boss.
Mm-hmm.
See, I had Bill Verker, a fire boss.
Yeah.
Ralph.
And also, of course, Dr. LaRue and.
Yeah, Dr. LaRue.
And Albert Littler, who was.
Oh yeah, he was a general manager, eh?
Oh, was he?
Yeah, oh yeah, Coal Creek, he was a general manager.
And because he was very involved with first aid, and got
Was
recognized.
Was it him or his son Albert?
No, it was
Her brother Albert, I mean.
Albert. Was this
Albert.
Not the same person, Albert Littler, that you're
Littler,
talking
Albert
about?
Littler was, I guess, Jimmy's brother, I guess, eh?
Oh, okay.
And, but,
So Jim was the manager?
yeah, he was
Oh,
the
okay.
manager. In Michelle, it was Chapman. Chapman used to live in West Fernie, that's how I knew the name, and he was the manager in Michelle, eh? Yeah, but Roger Giroux, he was a fire boss in Coal Creek in our mine, eh? Up the incline, number 3 Lake. And Michelle, I remember the 3 fire bosses I had Roger Baggio, Johnny McGinnis, and old Tommy Owen. And I should mention, when I was working in Michelle down the slope, we supplied, like, they only 5-foot posts, and they're only 3 or 4 inches in diameter. So you had a wire sling with a wooden handle, like you put a sling, and you're on your knees dragging these posts through towards the face, eh? But anyhow, I was doing this different job in the cot, they called it a parting, where the coal cars come down and they kind of separated them and that. And I was working there. And of course, I was young, you know, I was a cowboy them days. And I'd jump in between the cars, and I pulled the cable on my battery. Well, you think it's dark at night? You want to go down in a mine and see how dark it is. And there I am. Which way do I go? Hey, which way do I go? Finally, I kind of come to my senses. If I can follow the track up, I know if I can get up this track out of this parting to the main track, I know down below there, Tom Hawley was loading coal. Tom Hawley from Elko after, all the trucker, he was trucking that. I knew if I get on there, because the light will go show farther in the dark mine, and I got down to there, oh man, because I knew on that main slope, once I got on there, George Kubas, he was on one shift, he was a rope rider on that shift, on that slope, and Charlie Larson was his hoistman, and if it wasn't that shift that was on, it would be Joe Jerzak, you know, Jerzak, and John Hartley Sr. on the hoist. But I thought, if I can get down, because otherwise they're going to run over me. There's no room, you can't hear them coming, or wouldn't see them coming, you know, because they had to hide below the cars, otherwise they knocked their head off. It was so low. Well, at nights they have to, what they call, brush the tracks. They dig the tracks down, brush them to lower the tracks so the cars can get through. And I got down to Tom Hawley and old Tommy Owens. I guess he was probably in his 50s, but he was old.
Old.
And he gave me his headlamp, and he went out with his safety lamp, you know. And I've lots of experiences in the mines. I've been around. I've worked in Cedar Valley, and I worked for Doug Boardman in Newgate, stayed down there in the bunkhouse for, he didn't stay long, so I didn't work for long down there.
Do you remember when Fernie had the brick factory?
No,
No?
I remember where, this is right where Smitty's is there now, eh?
Oh, really?
Yeah, right where Bax is, all that Bax's property. And I guess they got the gumbo, the clay, right on the river there. You can see the clay showing up in the elk now. And like the river there has changed so bad because at one time the track come out of Cedar Valley down where the campsite road is now, come down along the side of the highway and across and in behind, because we fished along there and they had all pilings all along to protect the river or protect the railroad and that from the river. And it's hard to believe that right off, like from Smitty's where that big beaver dam is, that was all brush. We played all through that grounds all across there, eh?
So the river has changed.
The river was way over,
changed
eh?
course.
And then the part had come over, and down below Smitty's along the highway, there was a field along there. There was a field along, because we played there and looked down where the river was a long way down because you couldn't fish off the bank, it was too high, eh? Oh, there's 1950 and 48, they took a lot of the river, the property out, eh? Yeah, no. But Cedar Valley, like us kids, all of West Fernie, we had a cabin in where the cedars are now, but we'd go into the bush. See, Stockwells, people by the name of Stockwells had built like farms in there, I guess, around the early, maybe when the First World War started or in that era. But, and where the first Grizz Inn was at the ski hill, that was, we called Stockwell's second field, because we used to go there to pick berries and hunting, eh? And they had a trail across Lizard Creek and across some of the, built with cedar logs and that. You know, they built so out of place, you know, and they worked hard to get that. And Stockwell's first house, that finally fell, it was a big house, finally fell down, so all the guys out of West Fernie, the older ones than us, they built a cabin down by the creek. We used to go down there, and you walk from West Fernie up there and down there. I remember so many times in the dark, all of us, my sisters and all the neighbors, kids around.
Everybody had to walk, eh?
You walked. Eh?
You didn't go anywhere.
It's nice if it was a moonlight night, but otherwise you walked. Eh? There was only one street light in West Fernie, and that was right by what we call Corrigan's Corner, by that first little slough bridge. One street light there, eh?
One street light.
So lots of times when you're walking or riding, it got slippery because the cattle were loose and the horses, and they do drop stuff around, eh? You know what I mean? That's the way you grew up, yeah? No, the people had cows and chickens, and like there was, Bryant's had a dairy down there. Lockwood's had a dairy down where Don Jones lives now, down the far corner, like Downey's after, and Martinson's in West Fernie had cows. Peterson's had cows, sold milk around. Zenovich's, Pobolansic's, you know, there was so many, you know, sold.
So today they can only keep chickens.
Well, whatever, yeah.
Yeah, not very
most
much.
of them,
Yeah.
Mr. Bryant, like from Bryant's Dairy, he had the horse, and you know, it knew the route where he brought your milk, eh? I guess it was, I don't know, 5 cents a quart or 10 cents a quart, eh? Yeah. Oh.
Do you recall the building that made the Fernie beer, the brewery?
Oh yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. Well, that was we used to go if you found a dozen beer bottles, and I mean this wasn't illegal, not to us anyhow. They used to, any chip bottles right across the road from them, they used to dump all their old bottles, eh, over there. So a couple of us together, so we got to go in there and look. Oh sure, gee, you can scrounge up a dozen, they don't look bad, and take them over there. And I think Mr. Jack Brown, trying to think his name, was the brewmaster, like, and he knew where he'd got them, but he'd give us a quarter anyhow, because it was a quarter for 12 bottles. Like, he knew where he'd got them over there. He'd give us 25 cents.
He was just being kind.
Yeah, oh yeah. And when the brewery, like when I was with the highways, Carl Simmons and myself, we were the first ones to really ever use graders on the highway, plowing snow. I just finished reading a book a while ago that was written by one of our ex-highway managers. And it says like how they, in the 50s, they just started getting all the equipment and everything together and getting on. But I had the west end to Elko. Carl had the east to Crow's Nest, or sometimes we alternate, they go either ways. But and then I built I run a cat scraper, and I built a lot of roads around for me.
So just two of you working?
No, the other guys had trucks and that.
Oh, okay.
And
But I mean,
sometimes we drove
doing the
trucks.
job that you were doing, there was just two of you.
Oh, we on the graders,
Mhm.
on the graders. But there was Bill Timchuk, Tony Papine, Tommy Biggs, little Tommy Biggs, yeah, Johnny Hartley, and Jimmy DeWart for a while there. There was a few different truckers, eh? Louis Lento worked with us on the highways, different, you know, because see, when they sanded the highways in them days, you had to shovel it, and we used lots of cinders from the coke ovens, shovel it on the trucks, throw it off the trucks by hand onto the roads, eh? Yeah, but no, like I said,
Sure, a
around-
lot of physical work before.
It
You know,
was, it
you
was.
really had to use.
and everybody worked.
Yeah.
Everybody worked. You didn't need a foreman because you knew what you ought to do. And this is something I'd like to relate to, but I won't. And no,
Nobody will believe you anyway, Alec.
we worked, and like with the highways, I spent 35 years.
Mm-hmm.
There was no money in it, but it was a steady job because I can remember this one guy, he wanted me to so bad to go back in the bush. Well, Doug Boardman, come on back. One time, Doug Boardman, when I worked in Newgate, we were coming back through Old Elko when the road come up right by the bar and that into Elko. And he said to me, and Steve Kubis was working with us, he was sitting in the back seat, and he had a 49 Ford. And Doug says to me, I'll tell you what, he says, you worked for me 1 year, this car will be yours, and I'll give you an extra $100 a month. I says, Doug, you'll work me 18 hours a day, every day of the week. I says, forget the car. But I remember that. I remember, it was jokingly, you know. But years later, he wanted me to go back, come on. And Doug, he was a hard man to work for, but we got along after a few arguments. And then he had a D7 cat in the bush, and come on, he says, run that cat. He says, in a couple of years, it'll be yours, eh?
Hold that thought.
Yeah. Yeah, but like I was saying about roads I built with the highways around Fernie, local roads, in around Fernie, up the Elk Valley, down South Country, into Corbin, and I did a lot of dredging of the rivers, a lot of dredging.
Which they don't allow anymore.
And I've built a lot of like little dikes. I've put a lot of culverts in, and this is the problem I have with people don't want to listen, but water only runs downhill. And but I've worked like
Yes, you have.
down around Old Waldo when there was another bridge there. The one bridge was crossed to go down towards Newgate, and one bridge was to go to Door, eh? And that was the Elk mouth, across the Elk, just before the Elk run into the Kootenai River, eh? But even coming out of Cokato, if you'd have seen the road, and even at the brewery, they called it the Brewery Hill. As soon as you passed the brewery, you made a sharp right turn. It just went 100 yards and a sharp left corner turn on a hill. There was lots of accidents on that. And as you come out of Mount McLean, down the far end of the airport, come on, the road used to come out of Cokato and make a sharp turn into the right around the bank. And I put the road across there, and it was so wet. I got some pictures at home with the cat there, pouring rain, and the foreman come and I said, can't get through, it's muddy. We cut a bunch of big poplars. They're 3-4 foot in diameter, and we corduroyed right through there on top of the culverts. And then I filled it all across with the scraper. When I did that, I cut the new road across the field. We called it LaRue's Trailer Court now. That road across there, down towards the brewery, up at the slope down in towards the brewery, eliminate that brewery hill and corner. Bernard Anderson was so happy because he used to haul all the mulch or whatever from the brewery, for his cows. And he had to go around that corner with slop out and that, and he could come up a nice gradual slope. No, where the road goes down into Coal Creek now, there used to be 2 bridges to go to Coal Creek. And the first bridge you went down past, I think, I forget who built that first house there on the right. They used to go down the hill to the bridge. So I was there with the cat to build the other. We made a new approach so we'd only have one bridge at the far end. And I had to move some shacks and that the guy, the caretaker for MF&M used to live in. We had to move all that stuff so I could put the road through there. And I mean, I just had a small cat and it was solid rock. You're scraping down and then gradually got the road through there. No, it, like I take my, if I got my kids with me or somewhere, I say, and all the way to Elko, all those rock pits, most all of them, that's my tracks. You know, I got places that I was way up around the, and you can't even see where I've been up in there with a cat, eh? And I had guys ride up with me, they didn't like it. I know the guys at the mine, they go worse places with their cats and that. They got bigger machines than that, but we worked hard to do what we had to
Yeah,
do
you certainly did.
with the smaller.
But tell me where and when you met Lucille, your wife.
I don't know how, it's just,
Was she a Fernie girl?
oh yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, she lived, for where you live now. Thanks, you're Angela Schiani.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we'll go on to 3rd Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
Jesse George lived.
Mm-hmm.
Nick George.
Mm-hmm.
Lucille's lived there, the 3rd house
no
in.
kidding, 'cause
And then next to her was Auntie Ruth, like the Smiths.
right.
Yeah,
And so what was Lucille's maiden name?
she was a Glover.
She was a Glover.
Yeah,
Oh, I didn't
her
know
dad, Bill Glover, Humpy Glover they call him. Everybody had nicknames.
that.
Eh?
Oh, yeah.
He was Humpy Glover. See, he got hurt bad in the mine and he passed away pretty young. He suffered lots of his injuries. Eh? Yeah, and but no, like she was, her grandpa was Percy Jones. You know, the caretaker at the school for years and years. Everybody knew Percy Jones. Eh? You know, held the door open for Percy Jones, or you know, and I mean, them days I think Percy Jones and Max Bilecki. Max Bilecki lived in the house right on the corner there of 9th Street, just kind of opposite the high school there. He lived there, eh? Max Bilecki. Well, names come back all the time.
So, Alex, do you recall that big house that was next to Barton's?
Barton's.
Yeah, Barton.
Oh,
Barton's
yeah, Carcella's.
Yeah, is that
Oh,
what it was?
yeah.
Carcella's?
Carcella's.
Because it was a great big house.
Yeah, big house. Oh, yeah. And I remember when Richard Hutchison and his brother tore it down, like for, you know, they were hired, I guess. And they said the stuff that was in there, the old cylinder record players and all that, benchers, and, well, people didn't want that stuff. They just hauled it to the dumps.
Oh, what a shame.
Yeah.
Why did they tear it down?
Well, I guess they passed away and it was, you know, somebody maybe bought the lot or whatever.
Well, the school board ended up buying it.
The school board?
Yeah, and it was their parking for the longest time.
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
No.
And then they sold it.
Because in our days, there was no parking for teachers because everybody walked.
Yeah, well, that was the parking
Yeah.
for.
See, and next to it was Barton's, eh?
Yeah.
Billy Barton, I guess.
Like-
Tommy Barton was on Main Street. Next, they got that, is it a candy store or something there now, or, well, no, that chocolate store. See, because on that block where them are, there was only 41 Meat Market and Barton's.
Fiorillo store was there too on Fourth, on the corner of Fourth.
What's that?
Fiorillo store, on the corner of Fourth and.
Oh, yeah, but that's
Ninth.
down 9th Street.
Yeah.
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 But this is on 2nd Avenue.
Oh, on Second. Okay.
Barton's story.
Yeah. No,
See,
Barton's was. Oh, was there a Barton?
There
Yes,
was
that's
Tommy
right.
and
Barton's.
Billy Barton.
Yeah, yeah. I only remember the Mrs. Barton.
Miss Barton, the teacher?
I don't know if they were teachers, but
Oh,
there
Mrs.
was,
Barton, no,
yeah,
she
there
was
was
the
two
one.
sisters.
They were photographers.
Yeah,
He was a photographer. The other one had his store sold record players and radios and
yes.
It's
And I
the
know that because
musical.
my mother loved music and we used to go there and buy records.
and
But what I'm talking about, the Miss Barton is the one that had it right next to that big house.
yeah, the big one, and she
Yeah.
was married to a Johnson.
Yeah, that's right.
Johnson. But the other Barton, Miss Barton, she was our teacher.
Ah.
I went to school, when I went to school, I guess I was 6 years old, I was in a room 1 and 2. And I think about halfway through, they took us grade 1s and put us into this other room with all grade 1s, and I had Miss Dickin. The bigger, I forget, not Isabel, Dorothy, I think.
Yeah,
No.
Dorothy, yeah.
Was Dorothy the bigger
Mhm.
one? Was
Yeah.
Isabel the?
No,
was
I
it?
think Dorothy was
Yeah.
maybe it was Isabella Dickin that was older than Dorothy, and there was a
Yeah.
brother too.
Billy Dickin.
Yeah.
Well, he had a farm out on Dickin Road,
Mhm.
wow, East Road, eh? But, I remember the teachers, Miss Chubra,
Oh, yeah.
you know, Miss Barton, Miss Wallace, Miss Pringle, Miss
Pringle?
Anderson, we had Miss Martha Anderson. She traveled every summer, she traveled all over the world, eh? And a lot of people didn't like her. Like, I was a kid, there was a bunch of us that, we weren't anti-teachers or nothing, like, we were kids taught to be polite. And Miss Anderson, there was
You had respect for the teachers
yes.
too, didn't you?
about 3 grades, 2 or 3 grades, Miss Anderson followed us up. I think it was from grade 6 into grade 7, because she was always elementary, and she followed our room up, eh? Bob Duffy, I remember lots of them, eh? Yeah. Oh,
So you still haven't told me how you and Lucille got together.
just through people we met and that, I had other friends before Lucille, and, but things were different them days. Like I try to tell people, you had girlfriends, but they were just friends. You went to the show, I skated a lot, I loved to skate, eh? And Eleanor White, that was Jimmy White's daughter, Eleanor White, Maureen Sawatsky, Maureen Timchuk, Kathleen Simcoe, a few of them. I loved to skate, like with pairs, eh? And we did a lot, because I played hockey when I was young, eh? Minor hockey and that. I coached hockey when I was older, when my boy was old enough to play hockey. And that's why I got along with Jimmy Littler. I should go back to that. We had to walk up to the number 3 incline, and it was, us young guys could run up the hill, up the trail. And the old guys, some older guys going up there, they just with a cane getting up there, and they just were Oilers or something of mine. And this one day I guess I quit a little earlier, because they watched you when you quit, eh? And I come in there, and I come in through the back of the wash house door, and the door, and Jimmy Littler stand there. Tommy, what time is it? What time did you quit? He used to mix me up with Tommy Kupak. We played hockey and that together. And I says, I don't know. I says, gee, I think go wash, he says. Otherwise they would have docked me, see?
Mm-hmm.
But he was good that way, yeah. Oh, no, things they come back to you. But, no, friends with Lucille, and then they got in like her uncle Buck Jones, eh?
Oh,
See?
that was her uncle?
Buck was her uncle. And, her mother, after her father passed away, has to help her around the house and that. And then her mother met another friend, eh? And she got married after, and they moved out of town to Toby Creek, and then Selmo, yeah. Lucille's brother, I used to take him hunting. He was younger than Lucille. He's a logger and that in Selmo, doing really good, yeah.
How many children do you have?
2. I have a boy. My daughter Arlene was born in 1961, and my son Stephen was born in 1965. And my daughter Arlene has 4 girls: Rosemary, Megan, Emily, and Laura.
Beautiful girls.
Rosemary just turned 24 there a few days ago. Megan is, I guess, about 23, I guess, 22. And then Emily just turned 18 in September on the tower. When the towers were blown up, she was a year old. That's why we remember, eh? And Laura's in grade 11 at school, eh?
And your son
My son, he's 50, he was born in 60, he's 54. He's got a daughter. His daughter is 4 days younger than my granddaughter, my daughter's daughter. There's 4 days. She's her birthday today, in fact, 19th of November. Yeah,
Happy birthday to her.
she's going in for a nurse. She's in Victoria right now, taking her final training. Tyson, he works at, he was working in the bush for Roberts and that. Right out of school, he graduated. Right out of school, he was working in the bush, running skidder and all that. And now he works at the mines, Green Hills. And he just purchased a lot, and he got a big 70-foot by 18 trailer down in Burton Lake. Just moved in a couple of weeks ago to it. Yeah, but Stephen works at the mines. Stephen's 54 now, and he lives on Vanderburg Road. He's married to Jody Vanderburg, Freddie's daughter.
Oh, right. I knew there was
Arlene
a
is married
connection
to
there.
Ray Dykusen.
Mm-hmm.
He worked with the highways years back. He was a surveyor with the highways.
Oh.
And was surveying at the mines, and he's in the office at Sparwood.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure what is, but he's in the office at, no.
So when you think of the time that you've lived here and the changes, what is the one change that you would like to mention
Well,
that you think?
well, you don't know nobody. That's a big thing. Like even at one time, everybody met at the post office, you know that, to talk. You don't meet nobody to talk to on the streets no more. Everybody's in a rush. Everybody's got to make big money. That's all they worry about. They got to outdo each other, I guess it is. But no, in our day and age when we were younger, everybody was more or less equal. And everybody, I mean, I've got a little shop, it's 14 by 26 at home. If somebody had that in the 40s or that to move into when they were married, they'd have thought they had a castle. Because in West Fernie, the Biffy was 100 feet down the backyard you walked to. You had a pump in the house that you pumped water with, you know. Like I said, there was one street light. I think we had one, maybe two bulbs in the house, light bulbs. No, it was,
Big change, that's for sure.
It's a change, it's
Mhm.
a change.
But I would like to explore this change, so can we do another 5 minutes at least?
One.
I want to ask you about the change, like you mentioned just now, but also having lived here, 80 years?
87 and a half.
87? I mean, you've seen Fernie really literally change, right? What is the one thing, aside from like what you said, that you don't know anybody anymore, what is the other thing that you feel has changed Fernie?
Well, I guess it's the progress of everything. You know, everything is mechanized different, electronically, and whatever. Everything is. West Fernie, when we were kids, there was one phone in Gillette's store. I mean, you know, one phone down there. And I can remember, like, maybe this fits in here now. I remember my mother had bought a ticket for 10 cents because Mr. Allen was the cook at the hospital. And he only lived a couple doors down from us, and I guess he was so. Mom bought this ticket, 10 cents, and she won a radio. Well, the neighbors used to come over, especially the guys, to listen to the hockey. I mean, but when we had that radio, we had to watch, because Mr. Badley, Bill Badley, there's young Bill Badley, and then there's others, Bill Badley, and his father was the inspector.
Mm-hmm.
And if we seen the inspector coming, oh, you better shut the radio off, cover it. Because you got to have a radio license, and I think it was a couple dollars a year, eh?
Really, to have a radio, you have to have a radio license.
Yes,
Wow.
I remember that because she won this little radio. We had her for years and years, eh?
I bet. So when you think about it, Alex, do you think that the amenities that we enjoy now, you know, like the technology and the fact that we have natural gas instead of coal and wood, and just the fact that in many ways life is so much easier. Do you think that do you still feel like you lost something because you had the camaraderie and the friendliness and the socialization and just like a different atmosphere back. Like, what do you think about, from one to the
Oh,
other?
sure, those new things like gas and more, and all these others, sure, they're great. But, it gets, a lot of your friends have passed away, and the newcomers coming in, they're a clique on their own. They're a clique. And this town is getting to be a young person's town. It's a young person's town. When we were young, we never thought we were going to get old.
I know.
We never thought. I started with the highways, and right away they want you to take out so much for superannuation. And I remember a couple of us said, well, superannuation? Hey, I was 21 years old. I'm worried about retiring? No, I'm not going to pay it. So when I did retire at, I was only 56. If I want to get those 35 years in, I got to pay back, or it would have cost me, for those 2 years of maybe $50, it cost me $2,600 to get my 2 years in, to get my 35 years, eh? I mean, but like I said, socially, everybody met. They talked more. There was no phones or cell phones. You can't talk to a person because they're on their cell phone. And no, people visited, played. Even when we were younger, when we first got married, we all took turns visiting each other's house, played cards, things. Maybe we went go bowling together. Maybe we went and had a couple of beers, and then we went to somebody's house and talked. We went on picnics down South Country,
The reason I asked you that, because recently I read an article that talked about how today, although we have so much, we're suddenly realizing that we actually had even more when we had less.
Yeah, oh yeah. Like I say, picnics was everybody going on a picnic. I mean, there's no booze in that. You just went on, a picnic. Maybe some wieners and different things or whatever.
Have you ever wanted to move from Fernie?
No, I had chances with the highways. I had, like in 35 years, there was lots of jobs come up to bid on, all over. And I bid on once in Fernie, but I never got it. But I didn't want to live. I loved hunting, I loved fishing, I loved getting out in the hills, and it's my home, eh? But after that, now, why didn't I leave? Why? It's changed. But I've got my parents both buried here, and a sister, and half-sisters, and brothers, but it's changed too much. It's expensive town. This is a mine town. It's a mine town. Well, look at even gas. I couldn't believe yesterday I see fast gas has gone down 6 cents. It's been 6 cents higher from Elko to Jaffrey and Cranbrook for the last 3 weeks or month. And it finally dropped. Yeah.
But, just when you think back, you've actually had a pretty good life in Fernie, right? Or in the area of West Fernie.
We never had nothing exceptional, like.
And maybe that's one of the reasons why you didn't
when
leave.
we got married, we got married in November 1st. I think it was 1958. I always say it's about 1820, but yeah.
I actually want to ask you one other thing before we wind up. What did you think when Fernie, West Fernie, became officially part of Fernie?
My first thought was that Fernie couldn't handle it.
Why?
Because they don't seem to have enough, I don't know if it's people or whatever, in winter storms and different problems we've had with drainage and that, in our own town without taking over West Fernie. That's a lot of work at West Fernie extra. A lot of extra work. Yeah. I mean, with the highways, we looked after West Fernie. That was ours. In town here, from 11th Street down into this area, that was ours. I built a few of these roads around here with the cat scraper. A lot of people don't really know that on 9th Avenue there was a bridge, a wooden bridge, because Mill Creek by the planer and golf course that come across down into this area, and it was developed. We buried a lot of culverts underground in that. They had to kind of change the courses of that, that creek. The wooden bridge. You say the wooden bridge. What are you talking about? The wooden bridge there. Even Lizard Creek Bridge. There's Lizard Creek Bridge that they were supposed to finish this year. Just go a little further to Borden Creek, there was another wooden bridge, And even where our East Fernie Bridge is, the wooden bridge that went across the river from, it come down 9th Avenue, and turned over here, about 14th or 15th Street, over to the river, across the bridge, a sharp turn, and you can still see the road up the other side where that bridge was. Me and another kid from West Fernie, we were on that bridge 10 minutes before it washed away in 48. Yeah, we were down here on our bikes, looking at that bridge, yeah. But no, it's, but like I was saying, my dad, he come from the Ukraine in 1913 here, and you can see what kind of, and there was a few in Fernie, they come from the same village, I guess you wouldn't remember Big Bill Polanski.
I remember
He
the
lived
name.
right where Peter Jerzak lived, there.
Okay.
And there was a lot of Nicks. My dad was Nicholas. There was a lot of Nick. There was Cripple Nick. My dad was Long Nick, and Short Nick, Cripple Nick, and different Nicks, Fat Nick.
Oh, wow.
And they were all from that same
It was
village.
a popular name. It still is a popular name.
Yeah. No, it's, my mother, like I said, she was born in Lethbridge. They come to Coal Creek, but her dad, they're Czechoslovakian. Her dad had to change his name to Morse to get a job in the mines, because they weren't hiring foreigners into the mines. And they had to change their name. They changed it to Morse because he had brother come over here years before that in the States, and he had changed his name to get a job.
Mm-hmm. I think that happened to a lot of people. I have a friend in Sparwood whose family name is White, but it was really quite long with a lot of letters in it.
Did his mother just die a while ago? Because Pete White was a teacher, and I knew, like he said, oh, I know your dad. He says, we had a beer together, because Ukrainian, and he had a long Ukrainian name, and he just passed away. He was a good teacher, He only stayed a year or so, and he moved to the Okanagan somewhere, and he died a year or two ago.
But I think a lot of names were changed for immigrants, yeah.
Oh, I got a few friends in Fernie, they got a little short English kind of name, and I say in this town, I would wish, I'm getting old now, that we would have had a good Ukrainian group, because my daughter bought me one of these pads, whatever they're called, get the Facebook on and that, and the names, the Ukrainian names in there, and I know a few names because my mother and father were trying to learn English, and everybody spoke English. And I wished I was fluent in Czechoslovakian or Ukrainian.
I remember that you and your family came to the dedication of the big rock for the Ukrainians. Yeah. Actually, I took photos of your family.
Yeah, that was on the second time. The first time I didn't.
Oh, you
I was
didn't
in
know
the
about
paper
the
and I missed it.
Oh, okay.
I missed it because
I was there
should have
both
been
times.
my dad. That's like going to get back to where that arena was. My dad was in prison there.
Yeah, that used to be
in prison there, and then he was moved to Morrissey after that, and then they were released.
Yeah, that was the internment center in Fernie.
Internment, yeah. But no, my mother, because her father had to change his name. They were Ivanchos, Czechoslovakian, but they changed it to Morrissey. And my mother, she had 2 brothers and 1 sister, and they've all passed away, like Coleman and down the coast. And I have a half-sister from my mother's first marriage. She was 102 last April in Nanaimo. She's in a home just other than Nanaimo.
Is she still living?
She's still living. And up to, we don't get because she's in a home, you can't get in touch with me.
Mm-hmm.
And she's got a daughter living there in a little big lake somewhere quite close to the, it's there all the time, but, that Annie, her mind was so good, talk about everything, oh, her mind was right up to, yeah.
Well, I think yours is too, Alex.
Oh.
I could listen to you for another hour. But-
well, like I said, I get talking.
No, I
Oh,
appreciate it, and I
like
appreciate
to-
you coming and
Yeah.
and talking to us about the life and
Because
times.
West Fernie, I could name everybody that lived in West Fernie in the 40s. I could, you know what I mean? There was every nationality. Every nationality. My mother and Mrs. Singella. Mrs. Singella lived on McDonald up, way up the side. Mum would go over there and visit her. So Mrs. Singella would walk Mum home. And they're talking in their language all the way they get to hear. So then they walk back to that one, back and forth. And, you know, before they finish talking, like, you know.
Yeah.
Mrs. Singella was like a midwife, eh? Yeah.
Yeah, that's, I think, the difference between now and then. Although I think today, you know, younger people do a lot of things together, you know, like they'll go skiing.
Oh, yeah,
they'll go-
yeah. Well, it's a young
But-
generation, eh?
Mhm, it's different. It's a different.
Do you think that we, after working hard in the bush and the mine, we're gonna go to the fitness center and
You
then go
didn't need
skiing?
to. You got enough of the exercise doing
You know,
that heavy work.
I'm in the yard working, and I like to work, I like to work. And, there I am, shoveling snow, or we got a wood burner downstairs, and I'm getting old, I get in trouble every time I wanna go for a load of wood. You shouldn't be going down there yourself. Why not? I can go. I just, in the last, less than a month, I went for 3 loads myself. And they're heavy, but I can do it. I says, I tell the wife where I'm gonna be. I said, somewhere in that country anyhow. Yeah. But no,
Yeah.
and then I see these guys go to the fitness center. Well, what did they do all day? Oh, they must have pushed a pencil or pushed them.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Well, you had an interesting life, and I wish for you as many years as your sister,
Yeah.
at least.
Oh, man.
So I want to thank you again, Alex, for doing this with me. I really appreciate that, and I hope all of you listeners appreciate this
Well,
wonderful
there's a lot of
story
people,
of the life and times.
A lot of people I've left out that, you know, they're good friends and family and that, and West Fernie. And,
I know it takes a whole book for every
Oh.
story, but thank you,
Yeah.
and thank you
Yeah.
for joining us.
You're welcome.